It's
All right,
going.
let me know.
Okay, you are. You're it.
Okay, welcome to Cosmic Tea Hour 999. We are here with beautiful Ash, beautiful Teresa, and I don't know exactly what to call myself, but I hope I am decent looking tonight. Anyway, welcome to our show. We are here to educate, we're here to enlighten souls globally. I wanted to also say we are going through major astrological changes. We are going through major energy changes. And we are going through what I want to say to everybody on an etheric level, meaning a spiritual level. We are being elevated by the planetary energies. And right now, the most significant thing that I do want to tell everybody is Pluto, which is an outer planet that has been in the sign of Capricorn. It has been retrograde. We are going to be going forward. And I am going to tell you, I believe that we all already are there, but Pluto will be transitioning from the sign of Capricorn into Aquarius. Now, why am I mentioning that? Because Pluto in Capricorn is doing and causing a lot of changes on financial levels and government levels. And Saturn rules Capricorn, which for a lot of us can cause depression. It can cause people to be very uneasy and moody. We are going to great news. We're coming out of it. We are coming out of it, and the exact date that we are coming out of this will be around November 20th when Pluto goes into the sign of Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. And when it goes into the sign of Aquarius, are you sitting for this one? All right, Pluto will be in the sign of Aquarius until 2044. This means that we are going to be experiencing new discoveries in technology. We will be evolving spiritually. Our lives will be changing in an explosive way, and we're in for some amazing times. I also want to say to you during the retrogrades, let's take time to reflect on our daily lives. Let's organize ourselves and let's visualize our amazing planet coming together, all the countries coming together for the goodness of mankind and for love. And again, welcome to the show. And we wish everybody here tuning in much love and happiness. God bless.
Excellent. We love you. Thank you, Peter, for the magnificent, wonderful, and astrological introduction for us.
Yeah.
So, our topic tonight was that it's already done. And we left quite a grouping of notes about what this podcast was going to be. But as a reminder, it is not about the beginner, it is not about the master. It is coming together in a harmonious, loving space to say it is already done. It is already done. But what does it mean that it's already done? And what can we take away? What is our part and what is the part? So first and foremost, what I'd like to break into is, for those of you who are watching, for those of you who will watch, the most important question that you can reflect on in this moment is, do you believe in a higher power? If you want to call it Christ consciousness, Christ like love, not like Jesus, although Jesus did support and uphold love. But Christ consciousness is that a loving consciousness. Do you believe in a higher power? Call it God, call it cosmic intelligence, call it universal knowing. We are part of a very large whole spiritually. And when we talk about change, when we talk about transition, that we're moving into a different time, When we are referencing that, what we are feeling is the energetic shift in the air and in the energy, because we are so tuned to the metaphysical, the sensitiveness to go, yep, there's a change going on. There's a change in the energy. We feel the flux and swell of those changes on an energetic level in our sensitivity. And that is in part what makes us psychic or intuitive. We all have this gift, but some are a little bit more tapped in than others. So when we talk about, okay, we are awake and we are feeling it, and then some people come to us and say, we don't feel what you're feeling. We don't understand what you're feeling. Can you break it down for us? The first question in that is, do you believe in, do you know that there is an intelligence, a cosmic intelligence, a higher power, a God, a Christ consciousness that is, and that how big it is? Because most of us can't begin to even fathom how loved we are. And what society has put in perspective for us is being in the mind, but connecting to source and connecting to our truth and being able to tap into that higher power means to get into mindfulness and step out of the mind and get into the heart. And how do we get into the heart? We have to go within. We go into the breath, into the truth. So that's our beginning. That's our beginning. So Ash or Peter, would you like to take over from here and continue to expand on our topic tonight?
All right. Ash, would you like the honor?
Sure. So I have some actual notes. So last week when I was stuck in the hurricane, I did some channeling. During this channeling, I was told that this information has been around for a long time, but it's been brought recent out to social media, out to other channelers. So you may be familiar with this, but I wrote it down because I can't remember all of this amazing information. But on the topic of what both of you have said, like, I was getting goosebumps. I was trying not to shiver so much because it was just like, oh, just that unified connection. So, so this is called Love is Radiating. So love is a radiating, strengthening, and unifying force, spiraling into an upward movement towards the central point of oneness, the 0 point. The force of love naturally aligns itself back into the unity within the 0 point field, the unified heart of the universe. As we are awakening in the planetary body, we are remembering all of the history, events, and timelines. We are remembering every detail of life and nature in which we are embodying. We are preserving our cellular memory as it is recorded in our light body DNA. We are here now and at this very moment in order to ensure we would be able to fully awaken to help the planetary ascension. We are divinely guided to display compassionate action, restore balance and unity within the external light of the cosmic consciousness in which all of humanity is connected to the solar and star systems within the cosmic light body. We come from the stars, for we are the stars. This is the call for us to harness and rein in our energy and focus on Mother Earth, the planet that sustains all life forms. The impact will be, and this is personal, so each person may be different, but the impact will be that heart fluttering, tingling all over your body as we raise our vibrations, such as song and dance are used to raise our vibrations, but each to your own creative response. What matters is our connection to the star systems, are those of the heavenly star vibration. Connect to the star codes contained in our human vessels, is a soul counterpart on Earth, aligning now with our celestial families. It is time to step into the space of timelessness and embrace the abundance that exists in the quantum field. DNA is now recognized as a shimmering waveform configuration, a biological quantum field computer that is adaptable and modified by light, radiation, magnetic fields, and sonic pulses. The light assists within opening our chakras, transmuting pathogens, increasing the crystallization of the cells, and clearing the human reptilian hybrid genetic code. The legacy of ancient Thoth, Enoch, and Metatron reminds us that the language of light is the geometry of frequencies, and harmonic science of ancients is actually transforming human DNA. We are stepping into pure freedom. As humanity and Mother Earth are propelled through the portal into higher realms, every being on this planet is being offered the choice to align with the original divine law of one. Each wave contains a new light codes of the cosmic ascension for the next year's cycle. Their advice was be open to receiving these codes to activating your crystalline DNA to support you in making another quantum shift and furthering your personal evolution. So I'm going to be honest, that was a lot of information that I had to process and take in and say, what does this mean? What does this mean? And basically, it means we used to be all one, light beings. We came here to do our job. We came here at this specific time to align with this ascension that we are currently going through. And so I think this is a very important year where, like you said, the age of the Aquarius. And following that, can I read one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I actually found this online, so this is not from me, but it goes along with it. Okay, you'll see. It says, welcome to the golden... I'm so excited. I'm shaking. So I'm shaking. I'm vibrating so high.
Go for it, Ash.
Okay. It says, welcome to the golden age, the age of the Aquarius, where all the secrets of the world and humanity will be revealed. Our planet is moving into an area of space with higher radiation and a new energy field, which is causing a shift on the human consciousness. The age of beliefs is over, and we are now entering the age of knowing. We are currently in the early stage of the largest collective awakening ever witnessed in the history of mankind, humankind. Most people don't understand it, but this is what the Bible calls the apocalypse, which means lifting of the veil or revelation, a disclosure of something hidden from the majority of mankind in an era domained by falsehood and misconception. Far from being a horrible experience, the apocalypse, or whatever you want to call it, represents the revealing of the true nature of things. It ushers in an era of forgotten freedoms and unprecedented clarity. This lifting of the veil will set us free from the misery that has been a result of ignorance. And then they put on here, why is this not headline news? Earth is moving into an area of space with higher radiation or a new energy field. This energy transfers the Earth's magnetic grid, and the grid is connected to all of our consciousness. Consciousness is energy because it also affects the magnetic grid, so it's connected. The link goes both ways. The Earth's magnetic grid affects how we think and is now allowing us to think higher. Basically, the old systems are falling apart. The establishment is losing control. Disclosures are catalyzing awakening, and humanity is evolving and liberating.
I just
Okay.
lifted off.
Right. We did a whole podcast.
I'm feeling the energy. After you finish that, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the, yeah, really. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, the other night, Peter and I were in this very deep conversation, and I wrote notes just to kind of cliff note what we exchanged, and it was so much that I couldn't even retain it in my mind. So the only thing that I can do is really write out the notes, which is what I also posted when I put up that we were going to speak about this podcast. And, you know, if I use "it's already done," what does it mean to say that? And it's like, we need to realize that while we are in an in-between phase, coming, going, what are we? When you break us down, what are we? Beyond clay, beyond, you know, stardust, we are a life form. We are Christ consciousness. We are light. We are a living, breathing organism. And we are imbued with so much creative power, but we are so powerful and so creative that we could even utilize our free will to feel fear and give our power away. So knowing or saying "it is already done" is how we stand in a space of calmness through transition, in a place of trust through transition, which is why I said the first most important question that you can ask yourself is, do you believe in a higher power? And not just believe, but do you know? Do you trust that higher power? Do you feel connected to that higher power? Do you know that you are a part of that higher power? Do you know that all the abundance and all the prosperity and all the well-being and all the expansion that is part of what it means to be all that is something that you are connected to? So when Peter says it's about realizing it, there, if you knew you're already healed, you're already loved, you're already taken care of, it's already done for you. Part of the biggest block, we'll say, is when we were growing up. We came in with like some type of amnesia. We had to lower our high vibrational frequency to enter into this time-space reality, which is a lower dimensional frequency. We come in with amnesia and we go through what it means to be a human being in this time-space reality. So with that being said, we make mistakes in this dimension. We do things in this dimension that we would not characteristically do in those higher dimensions. And so do others. And in this dimension of separation in the matrix, we point our finger at other people. They point it at us. We learn, we grow, we hurt, we suffer, we go through the crap. But at some point, we have an awakening. And we say, wait a minute. This isn't how we're supposed to live. And this isn't really even who I am. And do I really want to get caught up in all this suffering? Like, when does it end? To what end? And we have to decide if we are going to be self-referral or object referral, meaning that we are going to decide to be in alignment for ourselves, and we are going to choose to live in that alignment that we share with Source, knowing that Source has got things taken care of for us, will provide for us when we do the seeking and then we get a response. And even though there's so much spirituality and religion in our society, what fundamentally is missing is the trust component. We've been bred throughout a long time in our society that if we want to make a connection to a higher power, we have to go to somewhere else or someone else in order to make the connection. But our very breath that we breathe is the connection. Our very beingness is proof that this higher power exists. We don't even begin to know or utilize the fullness of our power and energy. So when Peter and I were talking the other night on the phone, we said, you know, we notice what's going on right now. We see the war, we see the hurricane coming, we see the food situation, we see the money, we see the economy, we see the military, we see it. But what are we going to do about it? How can we do something about it? And we fleshed it out. You know, we're not in the same time frame where we're doing the Boston Tea Party. The military is more intelligent than ever before. Le coup d'état, like what le coup d'état? That's not how that's going to happen. I would be very curious, and not that I want it to happen, but like how we could even have a revolt to begin with the intelligence that our military is. So I can't foresee, especially if we're following a path of love, how we're going to use a revolution to make the country great again or make it what we want it to be. And how do we all come to some kind of an agreement for what the country should be to begin with? We know we've been played by politics for a long time. We know that there's been stuff that's been hidden or esoteric from us that has been known. And with people like Angela Ford, who used to be in the military and who were remote viewers, and they utilized a whole wing of psychic individuals. You think about our society, we didn't talk about psychics in the 1950s. We didn't talk about psychics in the 1960s. Maybe we talked about them starting in the 70s. And in the 80s, we have this spiritual explosion. But what is that spiritual explosion? A lot of it became spiritual ego, someone to follow in some kind of commercialism. And the trends that we see involving spirituality is it's religion or it's spiritual. I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. But if we look deeper into it, the religious person or the religious nature, it means to worship a higher power. It's organized religion that says you have to play by my rules in order to worship a higher power. So many spiritual people are in fact religious people, but they don't even know because we're not looking at the definitions of things, what the words actually mean. And my Buddha master and I were talking the other day, and she said her teacher actually didn't even like the word spiritual because of all of the ideologies that got tied to spirituality. And the very essence of spiritual ego is that as we evolve, we change. And true connection to a spirit means that we're willing to evolve as things change. But spiritual ego says, here are the practices, here's what I've learned, here's what I've experienced. And if you walk like me, talk like me, act like me, I can get you there. But if there's no change, if there's no following the pattern of evolution, then that's a stagnant lesson. And it doesn't move. And that's where we see a lot of confusion or a lot of, I was following this and now this doesn't make sense anymore and the world is changing and we got to reconcile. But if we just go to the breath, if we just go to meditation, if we just go to the true source of love inside of us, we will organically evolve with our intuition, with our higher power, with our knowing. We will be guided. We will not miss a beat. We will get to where we need to go. But we need to trust ourselves. And we need to trust source. And we need to trust that there is a source that loves us and is looking out for us. And I can't convince you, Peter or Ash can't convince you to want to choose this. You have to arrive to it on your own. Because whatever you believe in, if you believe in suffering, you're going to get more suffering. If you believe in a lack of well-being, you're going to get a lack of well-being. But if you believe in love, if you believe that there's power and energy and that the light is coming in and we have assistance from these higher beings, we're going to get it. We're going to get it no matter what, because there's so many light beings here now that have anchored love into this time-space reality that we really have no choice but to continue our ascension process. And that is our victory. We have won. And whatever this kind of stuff that's going on in the external that's ongoing right now, I would consider it something like growing pains. Something that when we make a change, and this might be a little heated, so I'm not trying to stir anything. I'm getting heated. I'm turning the pot on. But when we look at something like Jim Crow laws, where we were able to make people equal, it didn't take right away. When we had Dr. Spock publish the book in the 1950s that said your children need to be hugged and taken care of, it didn't take off right away. Right. Sometimes in our society, things don't take off right away. But if we have the seed, if we have the nugget, we can get there. So what nugget, what are you willing to realize? In what areas of your life are you willing to realize that it's already been done, that higher power is happening for you, that you can tap into it, that when you get into a low point, when you reach for the positive thing, that's going to get you out of the low point. And you may need to swing. And I'm like, we just had this conversation earlier. You can get to a low point and say, you know what? I feel a little like run down by this experience, but if we can pause, if we can get in the stillness, if we can be surrounded by light, if we have the right people in our life, if we choose to bring the right energies into our life, it'll be easy. It'll just unfold.
I want to know.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say something. You're stating it so brilliantly and succinctly. I remember years ago going to a group of enlightened souls in Connecticut, and I was so excited to show up because these people were shamans and they studied the masters. And I brought a tape recorder with me because I didn't want to miss a word of what they were talking about. And when they started to speak, I was clinging to everything they were saying. And they used, it's a metaphor, but they used the movie The Wizard of Oz as an example. And if you remember The Wizard of Oz, towards the end of the movie, Dorothy already had and possessed the antidote. She already possessed the panacea for returning back to the farm and her aunt and uncle. Well, when I was sitting in this group, I said, what do I have to do? Tell me, what do I have to do to experience what you're experiencing? And one of the shamans turned around and said to me, as long as you believe that there's something else that you have to learn to do, you're not going to get it. And I sat there, and all of us started together to hold each other's hands. We felt the etheric, we felt the spiritual energy, and everybody started to feel enlightened. We realized at that particular second that we already knew the answers to our questions. So what you were saying so brilliantly, Teresa, is it is a level of awakening. It's a thought. It's an awakening of your consciousness. What I also wanted to say to you is this. I've noticed lately that people that I've been friends with for years, I can no longer continue the friendship on the level that it was because I've transcended it. I have realized consciously and through my connection with the divine, with God, I've already realized that I'm there. They're still trying to work on their trajectory. So what we are all saying here and what the master guides are channeling to me is we don't have to work harder. We don't have to go out to some physical place and listen to another mortal being. We are all divinely created in the same equality. We are all inextricably connected on a spiritual level. The only thing that people have to realize is the love that we were born with as children that have been suppressed from society, the schools, the secular religion. When we're born as little babies, we're very angelic. We're not filled with all of these thoughts of you can't do, you can't achieve. We're not filled with that. As we get older and we are, if you call it pedagogy, what we learn through schools and we learn through the elders, we start losing our autonomy, our perfection. And that's the one realization. I'm going to be 70 years old soon. And I look in the mirror and I see a physical body that is 70, but I feel like I'm 13 or 14 years old because I know I'm eternal. I know I'm perfect. And I know everybody sitting here, the two of you, are the same way. So I wanted to interject that because we are all magnificent right now. We don't have to work on getting there. It is what it is.
I agree with that. And We are a sponge in our surroundings at a young age, says Val. I appreciate all of you for watching with us, and I love everything that you guys are sharing. We are reading it. Sometimes it's like, we want to answer the questions of people that are writing, and at the same time, we're delivering in the information, and sometimes we do enter into a channeled state when we're making a delivery. So I just want you guys to know that I appreciate everything that you're saying. I think that what I feel inclined to do is actually just to reread the notes that I have from Peter's and I conversation, so we can break into it piece by piece, because I feel like there's an essence in there, an energy in there that really captures what we are getting across to you tonight in these notes. And so is that okay? Can I do that with you guys?
Yes, I did want to add one more thing that my guides are telling me.
Okay.
And then I can't wait for you to read the notes. My guides are saying to me, we also have to be proactive with our actions, meaning
yes.
we can't sit back and do nothing. It takes the thought process, and we have to be proactive, and we have to be active on achieving what the reality is. So I did want to interject that also.
Denise says, can you please come on every day, even for a half hour? We've been asked before to do. We went from a bi-weekly show to a weekly show. We were talking about that, but yeah, I get it, definitely. All right, so here's these notes. Okay, it has already happened. Source has done it for us. There is a rapid growth unfolding now, and where you are vibrationally is a result of what you are vibrating. What are you believing in? What are you allowing for? What have you been told that's still forming your reality? And it's unique for each individual. It's not a one-size-fits-all experience. The ascension process, the shedding, the integration, all of it is based on some level of authenticity that is ours alone, and yet we still have room to share our like experiences. It's unique and shareable. But just because your experience may be different from someone else's doesn't mean that it's something wrong or something right. It's about being authentic. So it's a unique experience that is not one size fits all. It's a feeling, a way of being, an understanding. What we were noticing and what we spoke about on the phone is we said, in May, we started this podcast, Peter and I, and then we brought Ash in because it was the perfect fit. But who we have grown to be as people in our lives, one year to the other, but especially this year, we have done exponential growth. I became an event coordinator, and we hosted multiple events, and we are more out, or I am. Peter's lived in the public eye for many years now, but Ash and I are more in the public eye than we've ever been before. What we share with you guys is the study of what we've been collecting on our own, and now we're sharing it more than ever before. I've done more classes this year, got in front of more people, put together more pieces of jewelry. It's just been growth on growth on growth. And sharing this podcast and having all these creative things to talk about and share, and the conversations we get into in order to come up with what the subject's going to be to share it, it's all been exponential and expansive. And we can look at each other and say, I see where I've grown. I've seen where you've grown. Ash used to be very, very shy, and little by little, one show to the other, we are breaking her out of her shell. And it's so much fun to see her emerge out. And so like that is growth alone. So we were able to
love you guys.
I love you too, girl. We were able to see
Really.
each other's growth as well as Ash's growth. And because you guys have been tuning in to watch with us, we can see your growth as well. And even getting feedback from individuals who watch. We get Facebook messages, or we get Instagram messages, and people say, I've been watching your show and this one thing made me reflect, and now I see it from this way, and I'm trying this. And we love when you guys send us the messages that are questions of, hey, I watched your show and I heard this, but how do you think and feel about that? Because when we have those conversations with you, now that might be the tinder that we use to create the next show. So what you say to us is just as important to us as what we say to you.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
then in many in our reflections for our own personal self, we also included this podcast, because this podcast is an extension of us. Every creation that we partake in is an extension of ourselves. As we change, so does what we have created, with the understanding that we are now in a light age, that the light really loves us, and we made it to this light age. Like, we made it through so many things as a society, one lifetime to the other. You know, we talk about one generation to the other. It would be rare for any of us to know how many lives that we have lived. But what we do know is that what most of us know is that this is not our first rodeo. So think about how many things have happened in our world, from Sumeria to now, Atlantis to now, and look at where we're at. Look at all this stuff that we've made it through, and how many lives have been ours that we've got to see one to the other. And we're here, this age of Aquarius, this special time that we incarnated to take part in. There's so much light here right now, more light than ever before on this planet. Maybe in the beginning, when its inception was, when there was all light and nothing but light, but there was a shadow period for this planet that we are emerging out of, because so much light came in here, and we sustained it. We remembered ourselves, and we kept this globe glowing. And thank God for that. You know, so if the work has been done to get us to here, and now we're here, now what does being here look like? What does it mean? What does it feel like? What do we do now? So the task at hand is simply to light up, to be our true selves. Who are our true selves? That's what we're figuring out right now. Our truth is love. Our truth is that we are a creative consciousness capable of multidimensional things beyond our wildest imagination. And that's what we have the experience of navigating and exploring right here, right now, is that we are so much more than we ever even began to realize that we were. Whenever we look in the mirror and we judge ourselves, what we're doing is looking in the mirror saying that God didn't do good enough job. What? No. You know, and when we get into like a squabble with somebody else, and our ego comes up, and we have to justify why our ego was right, or we are such an entitlement. You know, we get into these things, and so many people that come into our lives are actually teachers that come into our lives. On a soul level, we love each other. And some of the things that we have learned are not always things that other people have learned, and vice versa. And that's why when it becomes easy, it's easy. You don't want to judge so much. And what I've even realized lately is, when you think about spiritual masters, they don't talk that much. And why are they not talking that much? Because they feel so much more, because they realize so much more, because they're too busy painting with all the colors of the wind to have so much to say. It's the ego that wants to pop, 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 pop all the time. So we said to ourselves, okay, you know, now is the time to step into our true selves, to be aware of the ego and the things that it nurtures via justification or entitlement, that standing in the light and the energy of love become irrelevant and pale in comparison to our happiness, serenity, and well-being, which means prioritizing our happiness and well-being above all else. And oh my, what a task that is for the ego. There is no making anyone be or do anything. So where I was saying earlier, subjective and objective. Subjective is, I am not going to go into the forest of illusion with you. I am not going to go get wrapped up by what's going on externally, the tail whip that sometimes people get themselves into when they live solely in the mind. It's difficult to live in the mind all the time, because it means that you're not able to be mindful, because you're so busy in the chatter. So that breath that we do, the moment of stillness that we take, helps us to have clarity. And then we have the guidance that we're so often seeking from external sources, because we can find it within, because we've made space to have it within. And the other thing, So when we began this podcast, we said we want to help people. We want to help people heal. We want to help people be happy. We want to teach people about the wonderful light already within and around them. But from where we stand now, we can stand in confidence and say, God has already done it, or God's in the process of doing it. It's not us doing it. We got the 411 on the inside. And if we got the 411 on the inside, how can we sit there and say that you also didn't? Or that you aren't coming, or that there's not a divine time, that something in your heart is going to stir and you're going to get it. And then we're all going to get it, but we don't need to talk about it as much, about getting it or how to get it or when to get it, or here's the instructions for getting it. Because when you go within, you just get it. And now we can look at each other and say, I know, you know, what's up? We all know now. So now is about enjoying our lives and vibrating in our authenticity. And in this conversation, Peter made a great point when he said the moment is about awareness, being aware of the fullness, of the bigness, of the entirety of it all. We aren't catching up to it and saying, I'm trying and I'm learning how to be and I'm becoming. It's not the act of becoming. It's the act of realizing we already are. It's the act of realizing it's already been done. It's the now moment. And all we need to do is realize the gift that we've already been given, not have our hand out continuously seeking to get in touch with the gift and pinching ourselves off because we believe that we're separated from the gift when we've already received the gift. It's already here. It's already right here. So it's going inward. So hearing it for me, for Ash, when we were having this conversation, was like, oh, Peter, 100%, you're entirely right. So in reflection of that statement, tonight's podcast is about how are we realizing the light within and the light around us. And if it's already done, maybe some of you are looking at us wondering if we see what you see, and we see it, but we're reacting different because we meditated, we studied, we learned, we got into an awareness, we had a teacher, we had a path. And now what we want to do is, if we all can step into a moment of awareness, us who are delivering and you guys who are listening, we collectively create a bigger ripple out in this world that say, when we have at least one seed of awareness in every moment of every day, we transform our own lives, but also the lives of each other and the lives of others who we haven't even met yet. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Wonderful thing. And then, but we also have to come to understand that energy and spirit precede the physical. We live in a law of attraction universe, and what is in spirit, created in spirit, becomes physical. We also understand that what we hold space for, entertain, we get more of. So we have to think and get very clear. What do we want and what do we not want? And what do we already have? And what are we blind to the fact that we already have? And how do we meditate and allow ourselves to get into the alignment of what has already been given to us and allow that to come into our awareness? When we move the conditions and the belief systems over, we can get into a place of clarity. Mm-hmm. So it's like the tale of two wolves. The one that you feed is the one that grows, and the one that grows is based on each individual choice. And we all have choices. And we have to understand that each choice that we have carries a vibrational frequency with it. And they become magnets that attract what we intersect with on the external. And Peter, and you have to understand, just like some of you do who reach out to us, Peter and I allowed ourselves to go through the rabbit hole. We talked about the military and the economy and the government. And then we said to each other, you know, there's a certain point of imagined darkness that you get to where you come to the realization of that's not even the reality that we live in. That there's too much light here. And even though we may not know all that will unfold ahead, what we do know is the most important part is that source is real. And if we trust it, and we let it guide us, then we are going to be exactly where we need to be when we need to be there. That the Christ consciousness, some way, somehow, already has it planned out, already is spontaneous and occurring. This is part of the Aquarius age, or better said, to understand that there is only light, because we are aware that so many masters are right here, right now, and that we wouldn't have made it to this point, and we wouldn't have overcome what we have if the masters weren't here, and if light wasn't here. We are blessed beyond our own realization, loved more than most of us can fathom, cared for, and if we could choose to partake in that care, we could experience receiving it. If we could remember our light, we could live it. The good news is that we already are, even if we're at a point where we don't quite remember, we're in the process of remembering. So tonight's podcast isn't about the beginner or the master, or even about teaching or helping you to get there. It's holding the realization that we are there. We said, what if our previous idea about helping and teaching, what if everyone who watches our podcast already knew exactly what we were seeking to offer? What if we knew it was already taken care of by a divine loving force that would touch each being's heart, one by one or many by many, wisely and knowingly? And our mission to teach and heal was no longer needed. What would we discuss and talk about then? And Peter says, although it is already done, and although we can step back from teaching and healing, what is most important is realizing it. How to be true to yourself, aka love, and hold space for others who are getting there and not be bothered by them, or living love by creating or bringing light rather than allowing the ego to drive. And I said to Peter, now stepping out of my most recent car accident, there is no going back to anything that was before it. There is only the now. There is only the new road ahead. There is only prioritizing alignment. Being spiritual in any sense of the word is to acknowledge our spirit, our connection to and beingness of source, and to live in the trust of it, which is sometimes the most hard part, because fear, especially in the amygdala of the brain, fear wants to keep us here, but our high self is here. And what builds a staircase between here and here is the trust or the allowance that we give to it, that allows us to make this ascension from traumatized animal into, there is a staircase, there's a higher power, there's an energy. What does it have to share with me? And I'm going to take my breath in and I'm going to listen to it. So personally, right now, my new practice is seeing the moments each day where I lead with love, or catching where my ego wants to make a mad dash for the driver's seat of my life, and telling my ego, you don't have a license to drive anymore. In the moment, me catching my ego and saying, you don't have a license to drive, because I am stepping into the totality of my truth, because I want the life that comes with living my truth, not the life that comes with living my ego. And that's where we all came into agreement. So here we are now. So Peter, take over.
Yeah, wow, that's a mouthful. My God, how can I add to that? I did want to say that I'm meeting more and more people daily that are now questioning where they're going, how they're going to get there, and what they have to do in order to achieve their life. And I'm not by any means an expert. I have opened my mind and opened my life to listening and reading and studying the masters. But I do want to say is the old way that we were all taught growing up isn't working for me anymore, and it hasn't worked for me. And now when I step outside and I put on my armor, I pull up my armor, each day that I walk out and I walk into a store or I meet people, I've got a smile on my face. I compliment them on the way they look. I am emanating and I am projecting that divine, perfect love. And I truthfully find that when I do that in my daily life, I'm receiving so much of that in abundance back. I also wanted to say my life has radically changed since I've met Ash and I've met you. I am not the same person that I used to be. And I thank God that I'm not. I also wanted to compliment Ash, and I don't know if I did, on your brilliant presentation of the information. It was magnificent. I thank you for that. I am just in a state of acceptance, and I'm in a state of awe of all of this. I'm sitting here at this moment and thanking God in the universe that we are able to come together in spiritual unity and to teach and to project the love, and also to give people options of how to change their thinking and how to augment and change their lives for the benefit of mankind. So that's what I wanted to add to this. And it is a gift. It's a gift from God and the guardian angels and the master guides that we're able to come on and do this podcast.
Agreed. And I can say that much like the individuals who are watching us, we all had a beginning point. We are all born from a source of divine love, a source of divine light. But when we come in and we come into the amnesia state makes us separate from the knowing of who we are.
It makes
in increments, in layers.
It makes us believe that we're separated.
That's right.
Yes, it makes us believe. Good catch, Peter. I appreciate that. It makes us believe, and we fall into being the character. So I may call myself Teresa here, but my name may not be Teresa overall. I may be Candle 137. I don't know. But the truth of it is, right? We're all the candles on the sun.
Absolutely.
So the truth of it is when we go through the amnesia states, we go through very real things. And not one of us here on this podcast in any way, shape, or form are discounting the very real experiences that anyone who chooses to watch us or speak with us are experiencing. Illness, divorce, whatever kind of trauma or tragedy people go through. But what makes it different, what sets us free to enter into that higher space, that higher love, is how we choose to handle it. And what I found personally is that most people were not given good tools. And from one generation to the other, you can see that most people were not given the tools that they needed to live in this truth. So one of the things that I'm very, very grateful for is that what world or what energy we must be currently living in for us to be aware, for so many of us, for us to sit on this podcast right now and talk about being in Christ consciousness, being in a love energy, that there is a world. Like I have a woman I was speaking to recently, and she said, I watched my grandparents suffer and go through a whole bunch of stuff. And I watched my parents suffer and go through a whole bunch of stuff. And now when I'm seeking guidance from my parents for how to navigate my life, they want to leave me with fear. And even though I don't know the answer, which is sometimes very frustrating for me, what I do know is that happiness is something we're supposed to have. And I'm supposed to have a good life. And my life is not supposed to be narrated by fear and suffering. And the thing that I'm coming to you now for, Teresa, or the thing I'm talking to you now, is to try to figure out what a life looks like that doesn't involve fear and suffering, because growing up in a household that's only been fear and suffering, I don't know. But when I go within and I meditate and I listen and I come to this class and I go to other people's classes and I go to the healing and I listen to my own truth within, my truth within says that I'm supposed to live a different life. And now I'm trying to raise my child with this knowledge. I'm trying to walk this path for myself with this knowledge. And I'm not trying to change the mind of my parents because I realize that I can't. I'm not trying to change the mind of my friends and relatives and partner and whatever because I realize I can't. I'm just trying to give myself the freedom to step into the expansion. And how do I make my life align with what I know is true? And I said, the most beautiful part about this is that instead of feeling disempowered, feel empowered that the most important part, because source will help you work out the how. But if you know that there is a source and you know what we're supposed to have because your heart told you and you were able to make alignment with your truth, that's it, honey. You got the most important piece of the puzzle. Let source help you with the how. Be guided by the breath and the inward guidance and the love every day, and it will show you how to walk the walk. But you have the most important piece. And if we could all just step into that is what, when we chose our paths, that's what we did. We're people. You know, when I started Zenshine, I was just saying, you know, I know I'm supposed to live this way. I know I'm supposed to do this thing. I know, I trust myself. And, you know, one of the women that I spoke to, another healer that I know, she said, you know, if you want to walk this path and you want to live life, it takes courage. It takes courage to walk in your dreams. It takes courage to walk in your truth. It takes courage to not be swayed by other people's mindset. When it takes courage to own your own path and follow your truth. So if you guys are out there and you're doing it right now, you have the most important piece. Let the rest fall in.
I did want to interject something, if I may. I grew up with two amazing parents, and they were diametrically the opposite of one another. My mother was a very strong woman who believed in anything as possible, and my father walked around constantly in a state of fear. And I said to my father, "What are you afraid of?" And my father said, "I don't know." And I said, "What has caused so much fear for you?" And he said, "I just fear. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be without. I feel like I'm not going to have." And I said, "Have you ever witnessed mom? Mom gets up and believes that everything is going to be incredible. It's going to unfold. It's going to be absolutely amazing." And my father, at a young age, when I was young, my father slowly started changing. And he let go of the fear. And when he let go of the fear, everything around him started changing. So I do want to say this. To me, fear is the absence of believing that there is a divine being that is greater than we are, that wants us to suffer. That isn't the case. God is absolutely perfect. God is absolute love. And as his progeny, as his children, we are all created in the image and likeness of God. Well, if God is all in all, how can we lack? And if we don't lack, why are we afraid? The mortal mind, our mortal mind or our ego says, we can't have, we're not going to have, we're not going to have enough money. Well, that's the mortal mind. That's not the Christ consciousness. And
Right.
even though Christ was the closest to what I would know, living a most tragic life, a very difficult life, and being persecuted for all of us, Christ in his consciousness even really knew that there was God, there was a higher being. So I haven't been through, obviously, what Jesus Christ has been through. Most of us haven't. But I also want to say is fear is just a state of consciousness. If we work on every day of seeing divine light, divine love, and we practice it, the fear is going to go by the wayside, because fear cannot occupy the same space as love. It won't, it can't, we'll burn it off. Every day we get off and we project love and positivity, we will destroy a sense of fear. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Not at all.
from a personal experience, I grew up with so much fear that I didn't think I would be where I am today. Today, what I've been able to do is a divine gift. I take no responsibility for anything that I've really done. I've channeled God, and Ash, in her magnificence and her creativity, and you, Teresa, we are all showing the world what it is like to live in divine love and grace.
Yeah. Peter, I wanted to say thank you for saying that to me, and also Teresa. It's really nice to have someone like just purely love you and appreciate you and see things in myself when, you know, a lot of the times we don't see it in our own. So I really appreciate you guys both, because this is the first time I've come out of my shell, the first time that I've been like, oh, I have a mind of my own, I have a lot to share. And
Yes.
I'm just like, it's a different age, as we all know. Like, I feel it, and I just appreciate you guys so much. And my guides came through when Teresa was talking, and they told me to say, for people, when they said be in the now, because everybody is looking like this. Like everybody's looking down on their phones. They're not paying attention. They're not aware of their surroundings. Their safety net is completely off. They're watching the news. They're watching things that are fear-based realities that are causing
Yes.
people to get in a fear-based vibration. And so it's just a massive consciousness that doesn't need to be. It needs to dissipate. And so bringing love, we judge people so much. We don't give people space. We don't allow people. So like you going to the store and saying like, oh, you're beautiful, or I love you. Like I'd go into the store, and until you said that the first time, I would go in Walmart all the time or wherever I was at, and I would say, oh, I love your hat, or I love your shirt. And I didn't realize what I was doing. And then you said that. I think it was like the first podcast we did. And I was like, oh, that makes sense to why I did that now.
Well, Peter's got a fan club. Every store he goes into, he's got a following, and it's so nice.
So the guys are saying that if you don't feel grounded, what it feels like to not be grounded is when you reach for your phone and you go shopping, you're shopping for things, or you're trying to find things that are materialistic.
Yes.
That's when you know to get grounded. You don't need anything. So take a walk out in nature. Remember who we are. Find things that are gratifying for you. Find things that will alternate those endorphins, those dopamine hits that's giving
Yes,
you.
the endorphins. Yes.
Endorphins.
Yeah.
So find, if you're artistic, or if you like literally watching a show on TV, or watching, or just snuggling up on the couch, or taking a hot bath, or meditating, or going to a women's group, or anything in that nature. Find something that's going to give you that same happiness, because I find myself, thanks to you guys as well, I find myself every day. If I find myself an ego, I'm like, I don't want to be an ego. Or like I'm always reminding myself to love people. Oh, well, don't judge them like that. Or like, I'm constantly doing that, because that's not me anymore. This is not who we are. I don't want to be that person. You don't want to be those people. As you guys have said, we're not those people. So let's get out of those old behaviors, the old patterns. The dark's gone. The light, let's come in.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing I also want to say here, and we haven't brought it up yet, when I go on Facebook, I see somebody that we both know that gets such incredible feedback on their brilliant artistic creations that they make. And I when I'm on Facebook and I say, oh my God, look at that bracelet and look what they're making. And then I see Teresa's name that is connected with the art. I mean, one podcast, we're going to have to highlight your art, because I see people loving you. I see people saying, oh, you've got to make this for me. Oh my God, it's the most beautiful piece. And a lot of people don't realize with your jewelry, your one-of-a-kind jewelry, that when you are creating this, it is with their divine energy. So Ash and I are going to have to interview you about your magnificent creations that you show on Facebook. But I appreciate all of us, and I also appreciate the simplest thing. I realize I can go out in the morning now that I'm living in Maine, and I could see a leaf fall from a tree. And believe it or not, this may sound ridiculous. I pick up that leaf and I say, my God, God created this leaf. And look how magnificent it is. Look how beautiful it is. Feel the energy. Everything we have around us are signs of the divine creator. So that's where I am now. I take the smallest things, the sunshine, somebody smiling, looking at a squirrel, and I say, my God, these were all created by the divine creation. So I have to add that. But one day, Teresa, you've got to bring your jewelry on and you've got to show everybody.
I definitely will do that. And what I love is that you, as my friend for as long as you have been, know on the receiving end how intimate and meaningful it is to me to be able to make pieces for people. So like, you know, there was a most recent conversation where you and I were speaking, and you said when you create these pieces, you're getting downloads. And it's almost like you become pregnant with energy. And
Yes.
then when you create the piece, it's a baby that you give birth to. He's like, when you and I were speaking, we said, you know, you know every single piece you've ever made. You know every single person you've ever given a piece to. You remember their name. You remember what you made for them. You remember why you made it. And a year later, when they have accomplished what they set out to do and they come back to you for the next piece, you know their growth pattern. You're so invested into every piece of the entire experience, and you can let it go. You know, it's not like that person has to come back to me, but the people who do consistently work with me, it's something so beautiful and meaningful, and it's so personal, so personal. So Peter, I really love that I appreciate that you said that on here, but I love that you as my friend are able to see that in me, where it's not, it's art, but it's more. It's spiritual, but it's more. It's crystals, but it's more. It really is like, you know, there's this whole different energy that comes in the middle of that creation process. So to be able to share that with the people who appreciate me means it's my passion, and I love it, and I can't imagine a life where I'm not doing it, and I'm very, very grateful to do it. So thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoy watching each piece and seeing the creation, and it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
I really appreciate that, and thank you. Actually, I didn't get to post it yet, and we just worked it out today. Dr. B and I are going to be doing a class together on November 15th.
Yes.
I didn't even get to tell you guys about it yet, but
I saw it.
I'm so excited. We are focusing in on BEST, so BES, Biological Energetic Synchronization Technique, and combining it with crystals. So he can definitely explain BEST better than me, but how he explains it, and we touched on it a little in the podcast that we were on together, was that BEST is you're walking through the park and you're holding the hands of your sweetie and you're in a very good place. And then if somebody bops you on the head and grabs your bag, your body and your mind have a trauma response. Your brain catalogs it and says, when I was in this park, when I was holding this hand, when I was feeling this feeling, I had this negative experience. We'll never do that again. We'll always be on the lookout. And when you incorporate BEST, you go through the process of receiving it, and it undoes that process that the brain does. It unlinks the bodily reaction from the trauma so that you can then work it out objectively in the mind. And there's so much more to the experience. But one of the things that I've been working on with people is set an intention when you pick out a crystal. Now be guided to the crystal. Now meditate with the crystal. And now let's see how this unfolds for you. So if we can take BEST, which helps people to navigate trauma, and we could pair it with crystals to support them from overcoming trauma, we're going to start unleashing a whole new type of openness, a whole new type of healing. So I'm super excited. That's going to be on November 15th.
I want to attest to, I have many pieces from Teresa, and I am telling you, the minute that you put her beautiful jewelry on, it's like your whole entire body shifts to that energy. Literally, I was like, you have to make me another one. Like, as soon as I got it, so you have to make me another piece. By the time, within 2 weeks span, she had something picked out. By the time that I got to New York to see her, she was like, you've shifted. Well, I'm doing it again. Like, she went into this, to see her in that beautiful channeling state, to watch her pick every single piece, every single crystal, wire, the way that she wraps the codes in it. Like, it's just so beautiful. So
I
Yeah,
love
we
your
can
experience
do.
with the carnelian when we went to Jessica's house and we did Femme Powered at Jessica's
Oh,
house. And you
Yeah.
picked out the carnelian heart. Can you talk to people about your experience with that?
Yeah. So we were having this beautiful experience, and I'm at the table, and Teresa's walking me through this, and she wants you to use your energy to go over all the crystals because she's got hundreds, possibly thousands. I don't know. It takes a long time to pack those babies up, let me tell you.
Yeah, she knows firsthand now.
But I was like going over it, and literally my hands, I never had a relationship with crystals prior to meeting her. And so literally my hands were tingling, like they were hot. And like the minute that my hand landed on the carnelian heart, I picked it up, and she's like, put it to your heart. And like when you close your eyes and you cry, but it's not like a boo-hoo or like a deep cry. It's just, you're just silent, and you just have all these beautiful tears just rolling down your face. And I just knew like it was going to be a beautiful moment. It was so many things going on. I just felt like this overwhelming love and joy come through. She's like, why don't you go lay down over there and put it on your heart? And so I laid back, and I laid there for probably 30 minutes, and just, she didn't know this, but prior I had found this rare store, and I seen this carnelian crystal, but it wasn't a heart, it was a moon. And I almost got it multiple times, and I kept putting it back, and I realized it was for the carnelian heart I was about to go get the next week. And so ever since then, she's like, I can't wait to see you go home and have this connection with crystals. Now they're just going to be like ringing, and they have been. They're so unique. They're so unique, and wearing them is a whole nother aspect. Sometimes I have to take it off and be like, okay, that's enough for today.
Yeah, so I loved going through that experience, and actually that class was really, really powerful. There was such profound healing for each individual that took part in that class, but for a different time, for a different podcast. Actually, Peter, before we wrap up for tonight, we have a special guest coming on October 21st. And he is someone that you are very close with. So I wanted to know if you could give us a little introductory tasty so that we can prepare for receiving his greatness.
Okay, I actually met I consider him one of my best friends. I met him through one of my dearest friends who just recently passed. I have a friend, she's still around me, Joyce Barry from Blog Talk Radio. And she was the queen of Blog Talk Radio, and she was broadcast live throughout the world. Stefan Ryback is an example, and has been an example in my life, of a man who not only talks about spirituality, but he lives the talk. And he is a media expert. He is also an amazing life coach. He has worked with some of the biggest names in show business, in music. He'll tell you many of their names when he comes on. Stefan is coming on to talk about his background. He is presently working at a multi-million-dollar radio station, and he is managing this. But when Stefan comes on, he is a very religious man, a very spiritual man. And every day that I get up, that we connect, we are so much aligned as we are here. People, when you tune in to listen and hear Stefan on the program, he's a blessing, and he has changed millions of lives that I know about. And he's an authentic soul. And he just, I don't think words can do him justice. When they tune in for the next podcast and they see him, every time I speak to him, my whole mind, my whole body goes into a state of nirvana. That's what I can use, the word nirvana. And I feel so blessed when I'm connected to him. So he's definitely a divine soul. So that encapsulates Stefan.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. One more question, and then we're going to wrap it up for the night. Peter, what was your intention when you came to us and said, "Hey, I have this wonderful friend. I'd love for him to be on our show." What is your intention? What would you like people to take away from the experience of Stefan?
I would like them to be open enough to listen to him. And that is really a hard question to answer, Teresa. I want people that tune in, that hear him and see him, to take away a feeling of love, empowerment, and peace. And if they can get that from him, each person, depending on their own life experience, is going to extrapolate from his appearance a different feeling and different emotions. So I just hope and I pray that people are as much in awe of him being on the show. But I do feel some people may even find a spiritual healing.
That's beautiful. I lied. I didn't mean to lie to you, but I have one last question for both of you to answer.
You lied.
I did. I lied. I'm sorry. It's since we've been doing the podcast together, now that we've shared the information that we came together and said we're going to share. Up until this moment, the podcast was about teaching, healing, loving, offering any kind of inspiration towards the light. But now that we came to this realization, now that we offered this podcast, what have you learned from it? What is what did you take away from tonight? And what is the future of this podcast look like to the both of you? What do you feel in this moment towards what we're creating and sharing? I know that's a very loaded question.
Yes.
I think that I learn constantly all the time. And I learned that we talked about so many amazing things about love and different aspects of love. And I learned that we work really well together, totally in sync. And we didn't even connect on what I was bringing and, Peter. So like, I can't tell you everything that I learned because I just constantly learn. Like I'm constantly processing information on top of agreeing with it. It's just constant processing. So that being said, all I know is I know that this show is going to go somewhere. We are going somewhere. I don't care how we get there. I know that we're going to do it together and that it's meant to be. And so I love you guys. Mic drop.
Well, thank you. We love you too.
I love you, definitely.
To answer your question, for me, would take 5 hours.
Right?
It would take literally 5 hours to answer that question. To encapsulate 5 hours in the show is here it is. Tonight has given me a sense of equanimity. It has given me a sense of unity, of connecting with my higher power. It has empowered me. It has given me a sense of the magnitude of what we all possess. And to be honest with you, what I'm feeling, I can't verbalize. It's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's a sense of wow.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it's hard to really, I'm not an inarticulate person, but to express it in human vocabulary, I would be remiss in articulating it. What I would like to see for the future, I want the guides to take us to the highest spiritual heights that are available for us to do. I also want to create a podcast that eventually has no negativity at all. I want to take the news and what we see on TV today and we hear on radio. I want to repudiate all the negativity that we are bombarded with every single day of our lives. And I want to bring to this podcast peace, positivity, hope, love, and the ability for everybody to realize you don't have to kill yourself to achieve the Christ-like consciousness or perfection. All you have to do is reach out to everybody, accept your brothers and sisters the way they are without feeling the need to force them to change. And that's where I want to see this podcast go. I want us to bring to the world and possibly to have maybe down the road the media say, we do have a podcast that is only bringing the positivity. I also want to say to you, I believe through our podcast, we are going to help heal people on an intellectual basis, emotional basis, and a psychological and a physiological. I would love to see this podcast achieve that goal.
Yeah, I mean, if we go off the premise that exactly what you just said, it's already done.
Yes,
and that's
it's
the cool
already
thing.
done.
I
I
feel a
love
sense
that.
of ease, of relaxation, because when we were in the creative mode and I felt maybe even more responsible. Okay, how do we help? What do we formulate? How do I take all the things that I've learned and all the things that worked for me and share it with others? And what transformed my life going to benefit
Yes.
how many people? And then what could I continue to learn to continue to benefit what these pieces that I could apply? So there's a group of people who will listen to us right here, right now, and say, you know what, that inspires me. I'm going to do something with that. And there'd be a
Yes.
group of people that might still feel disconnected. And in my previous
Absolutely.
mindset, I'd be like, well, what can I do to be of service to them in addition to the people we are already serving? And what
Yes.
I feel the conversation we had gave to me is that it's less about what I provide and it's more about holding space for source to come through us and for source to emerge in them in a conscious state instead of being source is there but they're asleep to it. It's putting it out there that source is there and I'm holding space for that. Just the way source woke me up from within and made me conscious of the source within, that source is going to touch each person in divine timing and wake them up as well. And if I pray to be guided to share what's on my heart, it's going to touch people. It's going to be the exact thing they need. So it's no longer about what to be. And what's more important is to just be authentic, which I already am already, but there was more of a workhorse mentality that I was ascribing to this that now I don't feel. And I feel like I'm in one of the most epic transformations in my personal life because everything that I put work into to get me to here got scrapped. And now I have to completely reinvent myself while we're going through this epic spiritual change. On a psychic level, I'm changing. On an emotional level, I'm changing. Zen, which translates to Zen shine, also changing. And we're changing every minute of every day. Every conversation we have, every podcast we deliver, there is rapid transformation. We're sharing aha moments with each other constantly. And just as much as I'm inspired by the source that we are connected to and inspired by you guys, I'm inspired by the people that I have conversations with and do classes with. So what I'd like to end on is I have a woman who's a student in my class, and she was talking to me about, I come to this class and I maybe previously was afraid to trust that what you are offering would work. But when I ran out of options, I decided to allow myself to put these methods to work. And to my surprise, it worked. And it was such a beautiful experience. And now I understand that when I thought I was leading with love beforehand, I wasn't. And now that I am leading with love, it made the biggest difference in my life. And I don't have any issue with anybody because my energy, I brought love into me and it transformed every relationship in my life. And as an individual who's offering this class, who's offering this information, it's not me who made that possible for her. I was a teacher. I shared the information, but that's all a teacher can do is guide and facilitate. I can't give it to you. But when she decided to employ it for herself, she had that experience with God. And to me, that's what anything I do from this point forward is all about. Whether it's this podcast, a class, a piece of jewelry, I'm acknowledging the God within me, acknowledging God within you, and coming together to acknowledge God together. So every moment is communion. Every moment is unity. And I'm ego catching. That's what we coined it in yesterday's class in Show Me Work and Surrender. I'm ego catching so that my ego catching doesn't create pockets of separation in the unity that I know we're all in the process of sharing right now. So we love you. We hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Super excited to see you October 21st. It's a Monday, 7:30. That's our next podcast. We'll be here with Stefan and we'll dive into this love fest that much more. You have a wonderful night, everybody. And we'll talk to you very, very soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
Take care.